This is the word study overview for Kit 3 Theme C. This work is about constructing plurals when the base or stem changes. To begin with, the big ideas of this kit is that it adds on to what we learned in an earlier kit, Kit 1 Theme B, where the introduction of the plural suffix e in brackets s, the shorter form of the suffix s, is the default form. This idea that a suffix can have two forms is the first time that I've run into it in real spelling, and I think it's the only instance that we've seen so far. But it's important to know that this, as the suffix, it does have the job of making things plural, and determining when we use an es or an s is part of what Kit 1 talked about. The longer form es must be used if an extra syllable is created when the plural is constructed. This theme expands on this idea. This theme will further explain that the longer form es must also be used if the singular form changes in any way when its plural is constructed, that the suffix es also functions as a verbal suffix to form the third person singular of the present tense, and there are other no longer productive plural formations still present in modern English. To prepare for this theme, you need to, of course, talk to your kids about how this es represents what we are calling a double suffix. The theme is about how the choice to use the alternative forms of this suffix is based on predictable patterns. To apply them, you need to be comfortable with the concept of the English syllable and the conventions that govern the choice between the I and Y in word construction. Counting syllables is important for this theme. However, remember, syllables have little relevance to the English spelling system. Focus should be on counting syllables and not dividing them. There are 4 cases in which syllables have any relevance to the English spelling pattern. The basic convention that every syllable must have at least one vowel in it plays in here. The patterns which govern whether a final consonant letter of a polysyllable is doubled when you add a vowel suffix, whether to double a final F, L, S, or Z of a free lexical base element. One of the patterns dealt with in this theme which indicates whether or not to use ES instead of just S. Another important thing to do with your students before you begin is to, of course, revisit the terms singular plural and the IY convention. So to begin, we're working on the fact that a suffix has two forms, can have two forms. In particular, this suffix, es, gives us the short and long form of a suffix, but they're both used to form something plural. The short form s is always the default choice. We always want to use s when it's possible. The full form es is used when the plural forms a further syllable. So for example, the word ranch is one syllable, but when we say ranches and make it plural, there are 2 syllables there. So it doesn't conform to the basic convention that every syllable must have at least one vowel letter. We add the es to ensure that it does. There's some practice tasks within this theme that you can use, and also some words that you can have students practice with, determining whether they use the s or es suffix. But of course, real spellers already know that when you add a final non-syllabic e, it follows the usual suffixing pattern. So that is one of the things that you should feel comfortable that your students already know. The plural of the bases and stems with the final y. There are some words that turn plural. We have to apply what we know about changing y to I before we add on the es. You can see that in cities. However, some words don't do that, like the plural of days. And it all comes back to whether or not a syllable is added. Days does not, cities does. The plural of some bases with the final phoneme f. There are around 15 nouns that have the final phoneme f, and they're spelled with either an F or an FE. We changed the unvoiced f into the voiced v before the plural suffix. Then the spelling also takes the plural es. Some examples here are half, which becomes halves with the v and es. Knives and thief also follow these. This is another great option for students to practice with, identifying words that do this and tracing back why. There's a flowchart as well as some words that they can use to practice.